He's good on the road too. He's good at home, obviously. Good postseason numbers. I think someone needs to give him the bag. What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? My name is Dillard, bringing you guys another podcast. This is the Barnyard podcast number 4. I'm back with my co-host Clemente again. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing pretty good, man. Opening day, less than a week away. I'm ready. I'm excited. I'm pumped.
Yeah, I'm extremely happy too. So we're going to talk about several topics, and we might include another topic if we have time with it. Just depends how far we go. But the first thing we're going to talk about is Carlos Correa. Then we're going to talk about MLB changing the baseballs in the sense of home runs, and then also with the substance abuse policy that they just introduced. And then we're also going to talk about Shohei Ohtani. And then, like I said, if we have time, we're going to talk about overall team predictions. We're just going to have to go through them rapidly because we could probably sit here and talk about individual teams for, hours and hours, but we don't have that kind of time. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. Let's go with Carlos Correa. I want to know what you have to say about it first.
I mean, it's not surprising, man. I mean, I can understand why the Astros are lowballing him because as great as a player his career has been, he's been pretty injury prone. So I'm not surprised that they're lowballing him, and it's looking like he's probably going to be testing free agency this upcoming off season. So there's probably a good chance that Correa could potentially play his last season in Houston, which would significantly shut Houston's championship window. I mean, we've been seeing it for the last couple of years now that Houston's core is slowly aging or like leaving in free agency. I mean, Jose Altuve took a giant step back last year. They lost George Springer. Justin Verlander just had Tommy John surgery. They lost Garrett Cole. They lost Charlie Morton. So like they're losing a ton of guys to free agency, and like a ton of their guys are getting older as well, and their core is getting older. So, and if Correa loses, it's just going to be like another big blow to like their title window when it comes to the Houston Astros.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. He had that quote where he basically said, there was no conversation after that in terms of a deal that the Astros were offering him. He said that they didn't speak about a possible extension since then, so that he's preparing to be a free agent this year. I remember when I saw that, I was like, oof, like that's not a good look on the Astros in particularly. And then, the Astros offered Correa a 6-year, $120 million deal. And to me, that feels like a slap in the face after all that he's done for Houston. I brought up a bunch of numbers just to prove my point. The one thing that I will say that I probably what's really hindering the kind of deal the Astros want to give him or severely limiting Correa is the fact that what you said about the games played. Looking at his games played, there's only been one season where he played close to a full season, which was in 2016 with 153 games. Pretty much the rest of the seasons, he hasn't really came that close to playing full seasons. I mean, it's been anywhere from like 100 to 90 games. Can't blame him for a shortened season. And I did want to mention that. It's the fact that Correa is worth at least $150 million according to Fangraphs. So he's worth at least $30 million more than what the Astros are offering him. Keep in mind, the Astros are offering him a 6-year deal. Correa has been in the league for 6 years already, and he's worth at least $30 million more than what the Astros are offering him. Now, not only that, his numbers are great. 19.4 F4 since his debut, 127 WRC plus, 833 OPS, good solid numbers. Obviously, above league average player. Not only that, what really sticks out to me is his postseason numbers, like 135 WRC plus, 869 OPS. I mean, when the Astros need someone to come in clutch, when they need someone to come in with the big hits, and, clutch is obviously a different discussion on its own. I have my mixed opinions about clutch and such, but, there's certain guys that you want in the postseason that are going to get the job done, such as George Springer, which unfortunately for them, they don't have him anymore. Now it's with the Blue Jays. And, Correa, he's another guy who's going to get you big hits when you need it most. It never fails that he was able to do that in the postseason. Let alone, I mean, again, shortened season, but it is the postseason, so it doesn't really matter that much. But 2020, he posted a 1.20 or 1.221 OPS and like a 227 WRC plus. I mean, That's nuts. Like, that's insane. Like, he's making the most out of every opportunity that he has presented to him. So Correa's just been nothing short of amazing in the postseason, regardless how you feel about the cheating scandal and all that. I think it just makes it more frustrating because you know that Altuve never needed to cheat, George Springer never needed to cheat, and also Correa I don't think never needed to cheat because one of his best seasons was, you know, basically his debut season, or 2016 was one of his best seasons that he had, and that was before all the cheating started occurring. So it's just like another guy who could have made the league his own without needing to know what pitch was coming, which is just extremely frustrating from someone who just appreciates baseball to its fullest. But and then also the last thing I wanted to point out was his OPS at home and his WRC plus numbers and stuff, because I really like road away splits or home splits too. You know, I made the video about Matt Chapman and Nolan Arenado. I've talked about how big home splits and road splits are. Excuse me. That's why I'm such a big believer in George Springer, because he's one of the few anomalies where he's actually better on the road than he is at home for some reason. But this is just another case of a great hitter. He doesn't need to play at home to be a good hitter. 839 OPS at home compared to 829 OPS on the road. 132 WRC plus at home compared to a 122 WRC plus on the road. Sorry, I cannot speak today. But like, just basically the last thing I want to say is just his home/away splits are really good. He's a very good player in the postseason. I think the Astros are doing him a disservice. I think he's quite frankly worth more even than what Fangraphs is projecting. Fangraphs, like I said, over 150 million. I think he's probably worth more, considering if you don't take into consideration that obviously 2020 was a shortened season. We don't know if he stayed healthy, which again, he has health issues, but assuming he stayed healthy, I think that he would have had a much better season than what he had. You have to think about all the players who did have poor seasons. Even Mike Trout, for his standards, didn't have that great of a season, which is crazy. But Correa, he's good on the road too. He's good at home, obviously. Good postseason numbers. I think someone needs to give him the bag. I don't know who. I really don't know who. As a biased Yankee fan, I wouldn't mind Correa. I really wouldn't mind Correa. I wouldn't mind Corey Seager either. Honestly, I wouldn't even mind Trevor Story at that matter too, if we were talking about Trevor Story, because the shortstop class is going to be stacked, as you said in the last podcast. And to be honest, I mean, he's going to be a good player wherever he goes. Somebody needs to pick him up, because, somebody will pick him up, but I think the Astros are doing him a disservice. I'm curious to see who you think Correa would go to, like a possible team that you think he would fit into their system.
Well, as a Rangers fan, but the first team that goes to mind are the Rangers. But back to the Correa thing, I saw some Astros fans that defending the Astros offer because they said that Xander Bogaerts signed the same deal with the Red Sox after his first 5 seasons. But like, would you compare Bogaerts' first 5 seasons to Correa's first 5 seasons? Correa's better, like in every statistical category. Like, Bogart had a 15.6 B-WAR through his first 759 games. Meanwhile, Correa had a 26.2 B-WAR in 604 games through the first 5 seasons individually. And then through the first 5 seasons as well, Bogart had a career 106 OPS plus, and Correa had a 126 OPS plus. And then another thing is that when you sign these big contracts, you sign them for future production, not about what the player has done up to that point. It's all about like what they're projected to do over the entire lifespan of the contract. And the 6 years, $120 million deal would have covered Correa's 27, 32 year season, and that's like right in the middle of the prime of most of these players. And I think it's fair to say that Correa in his prime, healthy, is probably like one of the best hitters in all of baseball.
Yeah, I agree. The thing that really sticks out to me, obviously, it's not that big of a difference, but, Xander is 2 years older than Correa is. You have to consider age into a fact. I think that's definitely something that every team looks at. You're not going to sign someone who's 40 years old to a huge contract, unless you're Nelson Cruz. But he's pretty much the anomaly to that. That's a different case. But Honestly, it wasn't until really around 2018 where Bogart started hitting his stride, though. That's the thing. Like, at least from like 2013 to 2017, Bogart showed potential, but he was showing a lot of inconsistencies. I mean, for most of those seasons, at least 3 out of 5 of those seasons, he was a below average player in a sense of WRC plus. So, Bogarts didn't start hitting his stride till recently, where he's posting, a 6.8, 4.9 F4 season. But with Correa, the thing about Correa is I don't even know if we've even seen his prime yet, to be honest. I think he can get a lot better than where he's at. I honestly feel the same about Alexander, too, because Alexander's still pretty young as well. But for Correa, I don't even think he's hit his prime yet. And you also have to take into consideration, which, I mean, could also hurt Correa as well, is the games played. Now, Bogarts has been a lot more consistent with his games played, and I will give him that. If Astros fans are concerned with giving Correa the bag because of the amount of games played and that he can't stay healthy on and off the field, I can't blame them for that. However, with the kind of talent that Correa is, and also the fact that he always pretty much remains healthy in the postseason and he always makes the most out of his opportunities, there's very few guys that I would want more in the postseason than Correa. And the Astros are still in that contentionship window. And you just lost George Springer. If you're losing Correa, who else are you relying on? They still have Michael Brantley, which is obviously a solid player. I can't speak enough about Michael Brantley. You have Orton Alvarez, which he's going to be a monster. I mean, I can't wait for that man. You have Altuve. There's certain players that you still have, but when you drop a guy like Springer and then the next offseason you also don't give the bag to Correa and you let him go, losing guys like Springer and Correa significantly reduces your chance of winning anything. Like, those are two prime guys. They won their championships with those guys, or their championship, I would say, or whatever you want to call it. If you want to call it tainted, whatever. I'm not going to get into the argument, but, the fact is they did win the World Series with those two guys. And you're just significantly reducing your chances of winning anything when you also let go of Correa. And that's why I think they should be willing to give him more of the bag. Games aside, he's always healthy in the postseason, and he gets the job done. And that's what's the most important, is that you stay healthy through the postseason and your numbers are good and you're doing what you can and contribute wins to your team in the postseason. So that's about it. All I have on that topic. Moving on, we're going to talk about the MLB changing the baseballs. We're going to talk about basically like the home runs that are going to be significantly reduced, apparently. We'll see how many home runs are actually hit this next season. And then we'll also talk about the substance abuse. The thing that I wanted to talk about for my section, because we actually prepared differently. I prepared for the home runs. He actually prepared for the abuse section, or the policy abuse, substance abuse stuff. So I'll go ahead and start with the home runs, and then I'll let him carry it away with the substance stuff. As far as the home runs is concerned, the information that I kind of picked up, I couldn't remember all of this verbatimly. I had to post this all on a Google Docs and quote, say it as I go, because there's no way I'd be able to remember all of this specific information. But according to AP, which is the Associated Press, there's apparently a memo sent to all 30 clubs last week, cited to an independent lab that found the new balls will fly 1 to 2 feet shorter on balls hit over 375 feet. This was actually a few weeks ago. So this is just basically where I'm picking it up from the time that it was written, but this was actually more than a few weeks ago. After the league saw a record 6,776 home runs hit in 2019. It's just nuts. The home run rate fell from 6.6 plate appearances in 2019 to 6.5 during the pandemic shortened 2020 campaign, which, how much stock can you put into a shortened season compared to a full season? I don't know. Who knows? We'll never find that out. But following the 2019 season, a committee of scientists commissioned by MLB came to the determination that the baseballs had less drag on average than in previous seasons. One of the reasons for the boost in home runs was the key to the boom was the inconsistencies in seam height, which would make a lot of sense. I mean, we already pretty much knew this. One of the things that really stuck out to me was the fact that Masahiro Tanaka is no longer with the Yankees anymore. It is what it is, But I remember last year in particularly, he was having a lot of issues throwing his, not his sinker, but throwing his split finger. He's very good about his split finger. Masahiro Tanaka, as far as getting a lot of his strikeouts is concerned, he'll bury you basically low and away or just low in the strike zone with a split finger. And when he has his split finger working, for the most part, he's on. Like it basically, you'd always what am I trying to say? You'd always kind of be sitting on the edge of your seat on the basis of, will his split finger be working or not? Like if his split finger was on, he was on. He was going to give you 5 to 6 innings, maybe more. But if his split finger was off, he may be out as early as the second or third inning. Like it all relied on whether his split finger was there, if he had the command for it, and if he was burying lower, or he was burying hitters low and away, or just low in general. And he was having a lot of problems with that because of the seams and the way that they are adjusted, which makes sense because also rollings, they said that they loosened the tension on the first of the 3 wool windings within the ball. The company's research believes this adjustment will bring the coefficient of restitution down slightly, while also lessening the ball's weight by 2.8 grams without changing its size. And also, last but not least, it said according to the AP, which is Associated Press again, MLB does not anticipate the weight change to impact pitchers' velocity. And then you look at the home runs, 2018, 5,585 home runs. And then you go to 2019, a massive jump to 6,776 home runs. Like that is a dramatic jump. That is at least over 1,000 more home runs hit in just one season alone. And both had 162 game seasons. And I would say 2020, but I don't really care about 2020. It's a shortened season. We don't know anything about it. We don't know what would happen if it was a longer season. But the point still stands is that it's going to be extremely interesting to see the season with a more deadened baseball. We're not going to get, I don't think we're going to get obviously 2019 numbers. I don't think we're going to get 2018 numbers either. It's going to drop. I don't know how much it's going to drop. It's going to be interesting. I think the thing that a lot of people aren't taking into consideration, and this is just my opinion personally, in this day and age where there's so many different types of pitches, so many different types of technologies that we can use to help pitchers with their, spin rate, which we'll talk about the substance abuse, which helps spin rate and such. But, we talk about spin rate, we talk about velocity, we talk about curve spin, all these different things and the technologies that we have to help pitchers become better versions of themselves. Honestly, people aren't taking into consideration that, if anything, this hurts a lot of pitchers. And it could be a good thing, it could be a bad thing, because I could argue that more now than ever, because of the type of technology that we have, pitchers are better than that they've ever been in the game. Because of the technology available to them, they're throwing all these types of different fastballs. I mean, I don't remember personally when I was younger, people throwing 104, 105 mile per hour cutters, 104, 105 mile per hour sinkers, like Jordan Hicks does. I don't remember that, at least as far as I'm concerned. I'm just curious how this is going to affect pitchers, because obviously pitchers have such an advantage in the league with the different amount of arsenals that they have with their cutters, sinkers, splitters, curves, you name it. And I think hitters are already at a massive disadvantage just because of that fact. So I'm curious that now, because of the dead baseballs, because of the fact that pitchers already had an advantage in the first place, they're going to gain an even higher advantage. And that's definitely something to look at. I don't know. What do you think about it?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, using substances and baseballs being rigged, I think that's been an open secret in baseball for a while now, and I think most pitchers use it as well. So the fact that MLB is finally cracking down on it after so many years is pretty funny. I don't know, it's just funny to me that they're now suddenly taking it seriously, because they've been getting exposed about it on social media for the past couple years now, about how basically every pitcher and every team uses weighted baseballs or uses substances to help their pitchers out, which kind of leads me to the whole doctoring baseballs that MLB is going to be doing now. So from what I understand is that they will now start investigating balls taken out of play. They're going to analyze spin rate data now, and they're going to increase monitoring for dugouts and clubhouses. So what that tells me is that I guess MLB is finally going to start taking this stuff seriously now, and Trevor Bauer is basically screwed.
Yeah, like I was thinking, we were talking about that before the podcast, and immediately when I saw that, basically this, obviously this substance is designed in particularly to increase spin rate, and then without using it, you're not increasing your spin rate. And Trevor Bauer is a huge fan of increasing your spin rate. It leaves me to believe that I'm just kind of sitting here, and then I'm like looking at the Dodgers, and I'm like, anything's possible. I mean, I think Bauer's a good pitcher, but is Bauer worth as much as the Dodgers gave him? I don't know. That's to be determined. We'll see. We will see starting with this season. But it's not looking too good for the Dodgers just because of the fact that he likes spin rate so much, and now they're just taking away with what he likes and what was helping him, especially in the 2020 season where he thrived and had his best ever season. Again, shortened season, but still, I can't take away what he did. Incredible numbers. But that's gonna affect a lot, which I think if ultimately anything, I personally don't care about the substance. I actually am a fan of baseballs, just like increasing the spin rate, just having pitchers become a better versions of themselves. But at the same time, like I said with the argument, because if I didn't mention it, I'd be a complete hypocrite mentioning the fact that now hitters are receiving an even, or hitters are, because of the different balls and the fact that it's a dead ball and there's going to be way less home runs this year, regardless if you're a power hitter or not. Hitters are already at a massive disadvantage because of that now. I would be a hypocrite if I didn't say, well, I guess pitchers kind of deserve it. Like, they can't really complain now, I guess, because now they're taking away the spin rate, which in turn kind of helps hitters a little bit to even out the playing field. But at the end of the day, I just wish they would just stop messing with everything in general, like stop changing it, because it just makes every season feel so different. Because we're going to go from like a season like where there's a bunch of home runs to even more home runs to just no home runs at all. That's what it feels like. And then we're going to go from spin rate to just limited spin rate. And then we keep changing the rules with the this year I'm fine with it. I mentioned in the podcast because of COVID and such, I'm fine with the double headers being 7 innings. I'm also fine with the runners on second because both teams have a chance. If you didn't follow through and didn't win for your team, then you should have taken the chances into your own matter. That's your own fault that you weren't able to catch the runner in. But I guess the point is, like, there's so many rule changes and then there's so many rule changes that don't go into effect that need to, such as the universal DH rule, because we talked about pitchers hitting. It's just very inconsistent. And I'm all for trying to explore new things in the league and exploring different boundaries to make the game better, but it just feels like it's just too much. You know what I mean? Like, there's just too many rule changes, just left and right, going back and forth. Very wishy-washy. Home runs, no home runs. Spin velocity, no spin velocity. Personally, if I had it my way, I'll ask you what you think about it, but if I had it my way, I would leave the spin rate and I would leave the baseballs how they were in 2019. Because if anything, deaden baseballs, like we talked about in terms of last podcast of how we're going to grow the game. If you want to grow the game, the last thing you want to do is deaden the baseballs. That's the last thing you want to do, because fans want to see home runs. That's what they want to see. They singles and doubles, us, we can also appreciate the classic single doubles to knock runners in. We can also appreciate the long 10 plus pitch at bats that lead to walks. We can appreciate those too. We can appreciate guys who the majority of the time get on base via a walk. But the majority of baseball fans don't want to see that. The majority of baseball fans, they forget those things. They don't remember the 10 pitch, 15 pitch at bats where someone leads to a walk. They don't remember just the singles. They remember the home runs. They remember the big hits. And it's not really that good of a look, in my opinion, on MLB to just suddenly just deaden the ball and just keep going back and forth and just extremely wishy-washy, if not. But what do you think about it?
Yeah, everything you said, I agree with, man. It's wishy-washy, and nobody wants to watch the dead ball era reincarnated again. That's not going to bring in new fans. Nobody's going to appreciate. No casual fan is going to appreciate, bunting to first base or like stealing bases. It's all about the home runs. That's what gets the most highlight reels. That's what gets like those home runs are probably like the most viewed play in baseball in a typical season. So I don't get it. I think another interesting thing about this this ruling is that when I was reading the article, it said that they're going to have like club personnel monitoring clubhouses every game just to see that they're like not doing anything suspicious. So that's gonna be that's a pretty interesting tactic to use, just having somebody basically roaming around being the hall monitor when it comes to like not using illegal substances. So yeah, that was another interesting thing that stood out to me when I was reading the ESPN article about this.
It seems kind of stalkerish. If I'm being
Yeah.
honest, just like being so specific about like keeping on players about that stuff. But anyways, I think the last topic that we should talk about is the Shohei Ohtani incident, or just Shohei Ohtani and how good he's been this spring. Outside of pitching, of course, I will say that because when I say pitching, I mean because he has a 7.88 ERA, 2 WHIP, which is just, it's not good, obviously. Obviously, there's more to it than ERA, but we're not getting anything outside of ERA and WHIP for spring training. I mean, we're not getting FIP, Sierra, all those other pitching stats that I would love to talk about. But still, he's having an incredible spring training as far as offense is concerned. I mean, he has a 1.701 OPS with 5 home runs. Just the other day against the Padres, 2 for 2 with a walk and 5 strikeouts against the Padres. I mean, I know the ERA is up there, the WHIP is up there, but it's just so exciting to see a guy go out there and pitch and record 5 strikeouts and then go for 2 for 2 and then just have such high offensive numbers with a high amount of home runs for spring training. And then also on that game against the Padres on last Sunday, he maxed out at 101.9 miles per hour. So you have this guy who's trying to become like the next reincarnation of Babe Ruth. I mean, obviously he's not going to get there because it's Babe freaking Ruth. I mean, I don't even know if Mike Trout's going to go up there with his offensive numbers. We'll see. But, he's maxing out at 101.9 miles per hour. He's the starting pitcher, striking out 5 hitters, including Tatis. I think if I'm not mistaken, he struck out Tatis twice, which basically the MLB is like punching the air right now. They're like, oh, Tatis isn't doing anything for this spring training game, because you know how much they love promoting Tatis, which I'm all for it too, but they do a really poor job at advertising a lot of other players that they should be advertising. But anyways, I could go on topic about that, but it's just really exciting to see Ohtani. He's maxing out almost 102 miles per hour, striking out hitters, including really good hitters like Tatis Jr., and he's having very good offensive numbers. And it's very exciting because as far as I'm concerned, we've never had a hitter who goes out there and pitches every 5th or 6th day and then puts up good offensive numbers. Even if Ohtani could go out there and average around 110, 115 WRC plus with, I would say, 25 home runs would be pretty solid, and then go out there and pitch every 5th or 6th day and have, around, even if he was around like a 4 ERA guy, which would be obviously better if he was around the 3 range, but even if he was around that range, like a 4 ERA right on the dot, and then like a 25 plus home run season with good OPS numbers, good slugging, obviously, good WRC plus around the 115, 120 range. What really more can you ask for from the Angels? Because that's extremely hard. Like, people don't take into consideration how difficult that would be to hit at a consistent level and then go out there and pitch every 5th or 6th day. I mean, what do you think about it? What do you expect Ohtani to do?
I mean, just from looking at spring training, it looks like Ohtani's going to right the ship when it comes to his hitting, because last year he was like an awful hitter. I think he's like in the negatives when it comes to B-WAR. So, but like you said earlier, the 2020 season, it's hard to like really judge it since it was only 60 games, and that's not even half of a typical MLB season. But it seems like Ohtani is like
riding the ship when it comes to his hitting. But his pitching, man, like you said, his ERA is near 8. But at the same time, you can't really take much out of spring training. Usually, just for guys to like get back in the groove, test out new pitches, stuff like that. It's nothing. It's nothing people take seriously. But like, I don't know. What do you think of the whole Ohtani being a pitcher and a hitter? Do you think that's sustainable, or do you think the Angels are going to have to like eventually sit him down and say like you can only choose one, and we prefer that you be a hitter?
Yeah, that's a good question. Honestly, the inner side of me wants to say that Ohtani just needs to hit, to be honest, because I think he's a much better hitter than he is a pitcher. And obviously we saw that from his 2018 rookie season. I mean, won Rookie of the Year. He was incredible. His hitting numbers were just, I mean, outstanding for a rookie. The numbers speak for themselves. But at the same time, you know, part of me wants to say he just needs to hit. But there's also that other side of me where it's like, man, we really need to see someone hit consistently and pitch consistently. Like, we've never seen that. Like, that's something about baseball that has been so dead. Like, that type of thing just doesn't happen anymore. And it would be refreshing, I think, for everybody to be able to see a player do that. You know, no matter how you feel about Ohtani. Can he do it is a different story. I don't know. I'm not worried about his offense. I think he's going to be a great hitter. He's proven it in the past. Shortened season from 2020. I don't put much stock into it. A lot of people struggled, as we've seen. And we know that he's a good offensive hitter. That's not going to change. I expect him to still go out there and hit 25, maybe 30 home runs with around 110, 115, 20 WRC plus. Above league average hitter. That's what I expect from him. I'm not expecting like Anthony Rendon numbers. I'm not expecting, obviously not expecting Mike Trout numbers. So people who are saying that he's going to go out there and have like these type of numbers, I don't expect him to do that. If he does, then, you know, awesome. It'd be awesome to see that, but I don't expect him to have those ridiculous type of numbers, especially Mike Trout numbers, obviously. I don't think that's going to happen. But really, to answer your question, I don't know. I want to see it. I want him to be a good hitter and a good pitcher at the same time. But again, it's just like the injuries. I don't know if it's going to happen. I want to see it, but is it sustainable? As far as the odds are concerned, I don't think the odds are in Ohtani's favor. But, you know, I don't know anyone and their grandmother who doesn't want to go see him. Like, it doesn't matter if you hate the Angels or not. It doesn't matter. I don't know anyone who would genuinely say, I don't want to see Ohtani go out there and have a good offensive production season and a good pitching season. And I don't know why anyone wouldn't want to see it, because I've never seen it. I don't remember. I didn't even pull it up on Fangraphs. I don't remember, but I mean, it's got to be decades and decades and decades since we've seen someone actually consistently both hit and pitch. You know, this is something that hasn't consistently been done since, you know, around the 1920s and 30s and stuff with Babe Ruth and such like that, you know, like those kind of days. So I think it'd be really cool and refreshing to bring that back. So that's about all the time that we have. Was there anything else that you wanted to mention real quick? Anything that you wanted to get off your chest before we go ahead and end off the podcast? I didn't know if there's anything that you wanted to hammer in real quick.
No, nothing. Just, you know, excited for opening day. I think next time we'll have like actual baseball games to talk about. So just excited for that.
Alrighty. Well, I'm excited too. And we will talk about the other thing. I'm sorry that we weren't able to talk about the standings. Like I said, we could have sat here and talked for hours and hours on each individual team about their individual standings. But we'll end up saving that for probably another video. And we'll see how that goes and talk about that whenever we'll actually have real games to talk about. So we should have a lot more interesting discussions to have in the future. We're very excited about it. But if you guys did enjoy the podcast, make sure you do subscribe, click the bell notification so you guys don't miss any time that I upload. You get notifications sent directly to your YouTube account immediately. And then also like and spread the video around and comment as well what you guys would like us to talk about in the future. But other than that, this is Dillard and Clemente signing off, and I hope you guys have a good rest of your day.